Welcome, welcome. Man, we're here for our 12th lecture. We're moving right along. It's awesome. Things are going good. Let's see. Let's do a stream health check here. Looks like upload's good. Not dropping frames. All right, cool. So let's get started. Let's make sure the mic's working. Is the mic working? Yeah, mic's working. Don't want any more of those mishaps where Mute Monster gets me. Cool. So today we're going to cover the imperfect tense indicative. And not to say that there's anything wrong with its perfection. It's just a naming system, okay? So don't look into it more than it is. We will get into some of the uses of the imperfect, but first we've got to see how do you form the imperfect and how to identify it. And we're going to cover all of that today. So let's get right into it. Cool. So, the imperfect active indicative. The imperfect is one of the past tense moods. Okay? So we had present tense. Okay? I am. But, so like I am walking or I walk. The imperfect... Well, okay, and then there's future. I will walk. The imperfect is one of two past tenses. You could potentially argue that there's more, but one of two past tenses. I was walking. Okay? I was walking. So, how do you form it in Greek? It has an augment. What in the world is an augment? It's the addition of a vowel. Okay? Now, if a word begins with a vowel, then it will take that vowel and augment it. I guess you could say it's a form of ablaut to compensate for the fact that it needs to have an additional vowel. Then it takes the present tense stem. Yes, that's right. It's a past tense using a present tense stem. That's no different than, say, the future tense, okay? Uses the present tense stem, then a connecting vowel, and then secondary active personal endings. Okay? So the two clues that you're dealing with imperfect is the augment and the secondary active personal endings. What are the secondary active personal endings? First person singular ends in a ni. Second person singular ends in sigma. Third person singular has no ending, or it could end in a ni. First person plural ends in men. Second person plural ends in te. And third person plural ends in a ni. Okay? So let's look at this example here. We have Leo, I destroy. Present tense, right? Leo, liis, lii, leomen, liate, liusin. Okay? The augment is epsilon. You can see epsilon all the way down. Epsilon, 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 epsilon. Then we see the ni, sigma, no ending, mente, ni. Okay? On the primary or the secondary endings. The same present tense stem is there, and the same connecting vowel rules apply. So those don't change. Okay? But what has changed is the augment and the secondary endings. Now, you will notice the first person singular and third person plural look identical. Context will be key. Okay? If ego is present, that makes it real simple. So, look at the context. Context, context, context. Words are not given their meaning in a vacuum. Their meaning is derived from the shared relationship of the rest of the phrase, of the rest of the sentence, of the rest of the paragraph. So you have to consider the context. So here's how it works. You start with the present tense stem. Okay? Present tense stem being in first person singular, Leo, right? Well, it's really Leo with an omicron. What we saw is the omega crept in due to ablaut. Okay? So Leo with an omicron. And that's the omicron is the connecting vowel. The stem is Li. Okay? We take Li, we add the omicron connecting vowel, and we take the augment epsilon at the beginning, Leo, and then we add the secondary personal endings. In this case, a ni. Okay, it's omicron because the connecting, not the connecting, the ending begins with a ni. Remember, it's me, ni, or nothing. Then it begins with, or the connecting vowel is omicron. Otherwise, it's an epsilon. Okay? So, Elion. So that's how we form the imperfect. You find the stem, you add the augment, add the connecting vowel, add the secondary personal ending. So that's for the active. Now let's talk about the middle passive. We still have an augment. We still have the present tense stem. We still have a connecting vowel. The only difference is now we're dealing with the secondary passive personal endings. Mean, so, to, metha, sthe, nto. Just be aware, in the second person singular, the sigma will drop out and the vowels will contract. Okay? So this is imperfect middle passive. Look at Leome. So this would be, Leome would be the middle, active middle, right? Active middle? What did I just say? No. It would be the middle passive, present, Leome. Okay? So the stem, li, we add the augment, so it becomes li. The secondary middle passive ending, or passive ending, is mean. It begins with a me. So we use the omicron connecting vowel, eleomene. Okay? So instead of li, we have eliu. Second person singular, eliu. Why? Because the sigma drops out and the two omicrons, remember, a bomb plus a bomb is ooh, what a mess. Eliu. Okay? Liate becomes, in the imperfect middle passive indicative, elieto. Leometha becomes eliometha. That one looks pretty similar. The only difference is it's got the augment. Okay? Lieste becomes elieste. Same thing, the only difference is the augment. Leonte becomes elionto. Okay? So look for the augment, look for the secondary endings. Secondary endings. You will need to memorize this chart. There's just no way around it. It's so foundational for everything else, you just need to memorize it. Okay, so on the left-hand side, we have our primary tenses. That is to say, present. It's present because, or it's primary because it's using the present with the primary endings. Okay? So Leo, Leis, Lei, Leomen, Liate, Leusin. You can see the endings themselves are in the second column there. There's no ending, sigma, yoda, men, te. Hold on, I can't read that. What does that say? Nsi, that's right. So that's the primary active. Then the primary middle passive, leome, lii, liate, leometha, lieste, leonte. And in the second column, you have the primary middle passive endings. Me, se, te, metha, ste, nte. Then on the right, we have the secondary endings. They're secondary because they use the secondary endings. Secondary tenses, secondary endings. So, again, Elion, Elies, Elien, Eliomen, Eliate, Elion. Okay? Ni, sigma, no ending or ni. Men, te, and ni. One thing I didn't mention before, in the third person singular, imperfect active indicative, it's L-E-N. Why is it epsilon instead of omicron? To be honest, I don't know. I'm sure there's an answer out there. Just memorize it. Okay, that's how you know it's different. Elion, omicron ni, is going to be the first person singular and third person plural. Elien is going to be third person singular. Okay, memorize it. I'm sure Mounts has it. I've forgotten what it is. It really doesn't matter. Just memorize it. So that's the active secondary. What about the middle passive? Eliomin, Eliu, Elieto, Eliometha, Elieste, Elionto. Okay? So you see the endings. Min, so, to, metha, ste, nto. Memorize this entire thing. You might want to draw it up on some wallpaper, put it on your desktop screen, or you might even draw up a poster and put it on your wall next to your computer. Do something creative. But memorize the whole thing. Memorize the tense forms in the active and middle passive, but also memorize the tense endings themselves. Trust me, it will be worth your while to be able to recognize these on demand, especially because later forms are going to tap into this same chart. So if you don't have that foundation, that will be a shaky house, right? You don't want that coming crashing down. So do yourself a favor and memorize this chart. Super important. Okay, so what are the rules about augment? Well, verbs that begin with consonants, you just add an epsilon. Easy breezy. Verbs that begin with a single vowel, we'll use abla. We'll lengthen. So the alpha epsilon will lengthen to an eta. Omicron will lengthen to omega. And all other vowels will remain the same. Okay, so like epsilon will remain epsilon, no change. But you'll add an epsilon to it. Okay? So verbs beginning with a diphthong, the first letter of the diphthong, can lengthen. So look at evcharistevo. Evcharisteo. Okay, that's an epsilon contract, but it begins with a diphthong. Epsilon, epsilon. So in this case, the epsilon will lengthen. And then it becomes Eve karistun. Okay? The diphthong can remain unchanged in some instances. Look at evrisco. It simply becomes evriscone. So the only difference here is the secondary ending. Okay? Now, what about compound verbs? How does that work with the imperfect? Well, a compound verb, what is it? It's a preposition plus a simple verb, right? So in the imperfect, where do you put the augment? It follows the preposition. It follows the same word order. So look at prosphero. Pharaoh is I bring, prosphero is I bring to. Okay? What you do is you add the augment after pros, because that's the first word, that's the preposition, and then you use your secondary endings on the verb. So pros pheron. Pros pheron, which becomes I was bringing to. Now, prepositions ending in a vowel will drop that vowel, okay? Look at katabino. Katabino, that would be the Erasmian pronunciation. Katabeno. The alpha, kata, alpha, it ends in an alpha. So what it does is the alpha drops out and then the augment takes its place. Katebenon. So when you look at this verb, what you're seeing is there's an augmentation plus a secondary ending. And that's how you know you're dealing with the imperfect. Now, some prepositions ending in a vowel will keep that vowel. Peripateo is one of them. And then it adds the augment. So perie patun. Again, you see the augment and you see the secondary ending. So you know you're dealing with imperfect. And last, compound verbs beginning with ek. Change the kappa to xi. Look at ekbalo. It becomes exebalon. Okay? So the kappa changes to a xi, then you have the augment, then you have these secondary endings. Okay? Simple, right? Now, what about contract verbs? How does that work with the imperfect? Well, the good news is everything you've learned about contract rules still apply for the ending stem vowel and the connecting vowel. All you have to do is add the augment and add the secondary endings. So agapo in the first person singular, this is the verb agapao, which is the lexical form, right? Which means it's alpha contract. Alpha contract. So the stem is agapa, right? Well, we lengthen the alpha on the beginning of the word to ida. It becomes iga. And then the alpha plus omicron is a fish plus a bomb is a dead fish, right? And then the secondary ending is a ni. Igapon. Then the second person singular, igapas, because igapa, and then there's nothing to contract there, right? Let's see. No, it's S. So alpha plus epsilon is a fish plus a crab is a big fish. The only difference here is there's no circumflex. And then and there's no iota subscript because in the secondary ending there's no iota involved. In the third person singular, igapa. There's no ending. And then in the first person plural, igapomen, igapomen. The only difference here between this and the first person plural active is the augment. And same with the second person plural. Okay? Third person plural is identical to the first person plural. Igapon. Igapon. Cool. So that's the alpha contract. You can see that was for the active. This is for the middle passive. Igapomin, igapo. That should be igapato. I'm missing a P there. Igapometha, igapaste, igaponto. Now what about epsilon contract? Same rules apply. This one's P-E-O. In the first person singular, it's P-O when it's not in the lexicon, right? So we add the augment. You just add the epsilon to the beginning. Epi-un. Okay? Because an epsilon plus an omicron is oo, right? A crab plus a bomb is ooh, what a mess. So first person singular, epiun. Second person singular, epiis. Third person singular. And the reason why the iota is there, and a crab plus a crab is a crab with on a hook, right? So epsilon iota contract. And then the same is true in the third person singular, epi. Two crabs, crab with a hook. First person plural looks identical, except with the addition of the augment. Second person plural looks identical, except with the addition of the augment. Third person plural looks identical to the first person singular, epiun. Context is key. That's the active. Middle passive, epiumin, epiu, epiito, epiumetha, epiiste, epiunto. Okay? Same rules that we saw with the alpha contract. And then here's what it looks like in omicron. Plero, which is plero, right? In the lexicon, but it's plero in the first person singular when it's outside of the lexicon. It becomes eplerun. We see the augment, epsilon, at the beginning. And then the contract, omicron plus the secondary ending. Eplerun, first person singular. Second person singular, eplerus. Okay? Third person singular, epleru. First person plural looks identical with the exception of the augment. Second person plural looks identical with the exception of the augment. And then the third person plural looks identical to the first person singular. So context is key. In the middle passive, we have eplerumin, epleru, epleruto, eplerumetha, epleruste, eplerunto. Boom. Now, one thing you'll need to learn and memorize is Eimi. In the imperfect active indicative, it's emin, is, in, emen, or emetha, ite, or isan. Okay, this is the imperfect active indicative of Eimi. I would suggest creating vocab cards for these. That's up to you, however you want to go about it. But do something to memorize this. This is important. Now, how do you use the imperfect? So these are just some quick references on how to possibly translate it. You'll find more information in Wallace and BDF. BDF? Yeah. One is a progressive durative use that expresses ongoing action that happened in the past. For example, in English, Jesus was teaching his disciples. So he was teaching. Okay? It's this idea of ongoing action happening in the past. It could be ingressive, inceptive, and that is, it's placing emphasis on the beginning of the action. So instead of translating it, he was teaching, it could be he taught. So the example that Mounts gave is angels came and began to minister to him. Now there's iterative use. Iterative use. And that's expressing continuous actions, not occurring constantly, but rather repetitively. So you might use the helping word kept. The widow kept coming to the judge. So context will help you determine these. There's a customary use where the actions occur regularly or customarily. It's similar to the repetitive, but more like routinely. So the English example now, at the feast, he used to release for them any one prisoner. So you can see they're used to. He used to do this. This was the custom. This was what he regularly did. There's a voluntative, I'm not sure if that's correctly how you pronounce it, but voluntative, where it describes what a person wishes to do. For I could wish that I myself were accursed. So in this case, I could wish. There's the conative, where it describes what a person tries to do. I tried to destroy the church of God. And then there's the tendential, describing what a person almost does. John would have prevented him. Okay, so these are all different uses of the imperfect. What you'll want to do for now is just translate it was teaching, was destroying, was coming, was releasing, was wishing. Just start with that, okay? Then look at the context. Does it make sense? It doesn't quite make sense. Start looking at these different uses. Look at the Wallace grammar. Look at BDF. Look at if they offer any tests on determining what makes it one of these uses. Then apply it and see if it fits. Sometimes it might be more than one, and then you got to use context to narrow it down further. Okay, so you have to play the detective and figure out what's the best use here. What seems to be how the author is really talking? Like, what's the point they're trying to make? And that'll really help you figure it out. And that's it. Today was the imperfect, active, and middle passive indicative. Stick around, subscribe. Hit the subscribe button over there somewhere. Like somewhere in that corner, like down there. And then there should be a bell. Hit the bell so that these little brackets go around it. And that way you'll get notifications whenever I go live or submit or post a new video. And that way you can keep up with all the content, because there's a lot. We got plenty more to come. Still about 200 words left to go in the vocabulary or more. And let's see, so this was our 12th lecture, so next week 13. Roughly, what is that, 14? 15? 14 or 15 more lectures to go. We're almost 50% of the way done, but still got plenty more to go. Only a couple more weeks will we be meeting on Fridays, and then I'll be transitioning back to Saturdays for these Greek lectures. So stick around. I appreciate the support. If you like it, hit like. If you don't like it, hit dislike. And don't forget, if you want, you can support me by going to streamlabs.com/phoneophone1. The link is down below if you feel so inclined. It's optional, but this content is free. I'm putting it out there for people to be able to learn Greek free of charge. You don't need to worry about spending thousands of dollars for university level coursework. You can learn this from the comfort of your own home, even on your own time, at your own pace. How awesome is that? So there you go. My gift to you. Stick around next week. We'll be back here Friday, 9 a.m. next week for Lecture 13. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.